what do you do?
So my name's Steve Maasch. I'm a Vice President of Human Resources for First Interstate Bank System, headquartered in Montana. And I'm over all of the human resources verticals, if you will. So that's what I do at present.
And how did you get into HR?
Well, that was an interesting path. When I graduated college, human resources was really not on my radar screen, if you will. I'd taken a class in HR that was about as far as it went. I actually stepped into the private equity world. And so I was a portfolio operating manager. I was there for about 5, 6 years, if you will, really working through mergers and acquisitions, being a consultant into the businesses that we had purchased, if you will, holding them for 3 years and selling. And you get a lot of business experience through that. I actually started my HR career with Microsoft. And that was as a result of a sale of one of the companies we had at the private equity group. Microsoft bid into it. And through that process, as we were divesting, a job came open over there, which was for HR. And that's how I stepped into HR at that time. And that was a whole different environment. They were specifically recruiting for their HR team, someone with a business background that was very similar to mine. And so it just turned out to be this fantastic fit. So that's actually how I stepped into HR.
And then after you got your first role in HR, there's one thing about getting your first role, and there's another thing about ensuring that you continue in that same career path and grow your career. So what are some steps that you've taken to ensure that you've had continued success within the HR industry?
Well, I think there's a number of things. One, I would always say it this way, and this is too generic, it's network. Network the people who are successful in your field. Find a mentor. Find someone that, takes an interest in you and helping you and guiding you through your career. That's one. As far as like being self-aware, I think that's really big. Have a vision. Know what you want to accomplish and why. If it's HR, that is fantastic, but know how you're going to accomplish it, and in terms of ensuring a successful career in HR, make sure you have a vision, be a strategic thinker, know how to align HR with the company's goals. Very important is become an effective communicator. Now, notice I said effective, I didn't say successful, because the two don't necessarily always go together. And being an effective communicator is huge within HR. You must be the voice of the organization's culture. You really do. In this day and age, and I would say looking forward for the foreseeable future, you need to become tech savvy. If you are not, you're going to get left behind. You absolutely have to stay up with the current technology, what those tools are, what those solutions are. And that's going to help to ensure your success as well. Understand the numbers. One of the biggest things in HR, one of the biggest challenges, I should say, is finding business acumen within the function. Understanding the numbers, be able to create and present a business case and present it using the language of business, not HR speak, if you will. And that leads to being a business partner. You need to be able to collaborate, solve problems. You need to manage expectations. You've got to develop trust. That's huge. All of these things you must have to be successful. Another thing would be understand whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. Nobody's purely one way or the other that I've ever met. Hopefully you're somewhere in the middle. And the reason I say this is get out of your office, get out of your cubicle, wherever you're at, have a presence. And that's going to help develop relationships, develop trust. And that is absolutely huge within HR. And, lastly, I might throw out there, be able to take risks. You've got to understand your own, level of accepting risk, whether it be on a career basis or making decisions on a day-to-day. You cannot have an analysis paralysis. You have to be able to make decisions as you move up through the ranks of HR, especially at the HR executive level. You want to be collaborative, get the best information as possible, but you are going to have to be able to take risks, if you will. So I'll stop there.
One of the things you mentioned is it's important to understand where the future of technology is going within HR and just having the mindset to be more willing to be tech savvy. So that leads me to my next question for you, which is, what are some of the tech tools that you use that you feel like are very helpful to whether that be for you or maybe for other HR professionals to use to execute on the job?
For myself, there's going to be two basic ones. One's the big, right? It's going to be the HRIS enterprise system. For me, I'm using Workday today. It's one integrated system. And what's huge about that is being able to get to the data. And Excel would be the other one, if you're wondering. I think you need to have advanced skills with the Excel worksheet, entering databases, pulling data out of like Workday, for example. So what I would say from a tool standpoint, there are, I think there are millions of them out there. You've got to decide for yourself, where the data is. This is how I would step back. Where's the data? Do you know what the data is that resides out there? Do you understand the story the data can tell? And then can you move forward from that? Meaning, can you become predictive? Can you identify trends in the business and utilize that to make decisions to move forward, if you will? So I know I'm getting away from the tools question a little bit, but you really need to think about what are you trying to achieve? What problems are you trying to solve? Then work back to what tools you need at that point in time. For myself, I would say there's probably two. I've got a lot more tools, don't get me wrong. There's two I would go back to all the time. One's the HRIS, the other one's Excel.
And tools are really helpful for when you're trying to have success on the job. When you had mentioned a couple of skills that were important to have success on jobs, such as being an effective communicator.
Mhm.
Now, before people even get the job, there are many different roles within HR. So, what goes into picking and finding a role that's going to make you happy? Because there is a big difference between, HR business partner than someone who may work as an HR generalist.
Right.
And
Well, I think there's, I'm always going to go back to being self-aware and, know your interests, know where your passions are. For myself, if I'm looking at an HR opportunity, that granted I'm at the vice president level at this point in time, I'm going to do some things that are more extrinsic as far as intrinsic. For example, there's a due diligence that I go through, for example. I'm going to look at the market space and growth potential. I mean, you want to know when you take a job, right, that they're going to be there for a while and that they're growing in the organization. So you want to do that, up front. You want to understand their financial health. You may go out there and find out they went through bankruptcy a year ago. Is that what you want to jump into, if you will? So you're going to want to understand that. The market reputation, that's becoming, much, much larger, especially with social media out there. What are their values? What's their mission, vision, values? I think that's very, very important to understand because you're going to be looking for what's your potential fit. When I'm looking at potential fit, that's when I start looking at what's the work I'm going to do. And I think in terms of, is that going to be enjoyable? Am I going to enjoy that? Am I going to be able to make an impact in the organization, whether it be at a team level or even individually? Because you're going to want to understand, how do they drive performance? What are their expectations? Those types of things. And I'm also going to look at the team, and that goes to potential fit. If it's the CEO and the leadership team, who are they? Are they fully committed to this role? How long has the CEO been there? What's the tenure for this? If you look at it and they've replaced their CEO every year, do you really want to get into that environment? Maybe you do, but maybe you don't within that. Look out at Glassdoor, find people that you can talk to directly about the organization. Would they recommend that you work with? Those are types of things that I would say go into picking an HR position that you're going to enjoy because you're looking at the potential fit, you're looking at the values of that organization, but you're also looking at the viability that they're going to be around for a long period of time, and you're going to enjoy that environment as well.
And you had mentioned a little bit earlier about the importance of being technology savvy as well as just staying up to date within the industry.
Mhm.
And speaking about the industry itself, where do you see the future of HR going? Now, this is a bit of a broader question because we have different growing industries, we have social media, and we have all these things, and we have the remote workforce today, which has become such a heavy topic of discussion as of late. So, take it wherever you want it.
I think for myself, I would stay at a high level because you're exactly right. Depending on the size of company, the industry you're in, we could really flow one way or the other with the conversation. I would say, general trends, technology and analytics would be one category. Um, we're really pushing hard in HR to give employees a consumer experience. Um, and we're also moving towards being a really true business and workforce consultant, business partner. if you will, within that. And that goes to some of the things we've been talking about, understanding the business, speaking the language, understanding what drives the business and how we can enable that, through the workforce. I think that's going to continue forward, but technology and analytics, that's going to become more pronounced as we move forward. Another thing within HR specifically is the higher business acumen. The people within HR are not going to be able to silo like historically some of the functions have been able to do. They've got to understand the direction of the organization. Are they aligned with the organization and the needs of the organization? Are they helping to drive the culture? Are they bringing a sense of that we are living the mission, vision, values? What we say is what we do throughout that. So I think those are going to be a couple big areas as far as the future of HR and where it's going.
And when it comes to people getting into their HR role, and let's say that's either leveling up into a new HR role or maybe it's their first HR role, they're going to face different hurdles within their team, whether that be through communication or even just adopting new tools. Can you talk to us about some of these hurdles and how to solve them?
I think one of the biggest hurdles when you get into the higher levels of HR, the bigger hurdles are resistance to what I would call contemporary HR. You've got a lot of folks, I don't want to talk too much generationally, but who've been around, say, 20 or more years in the industry. They have very specific experiences that they've had directly with HR. And a lot of it has been more tactical and more administrative. And so when you look at contemporary HR, we still have to do that. That's table stakes, in our game. But we're becoming much more strategic, becoming much more business focused and driving forward. We're definitely the voice of the workforce and the culture and fairness and equity and inclusion, those types of things, which haven't existed before. And there's resistance there. So some of the things in how you resolve that, it goes back to understanding the business case, business acumen, what drives the organization. How can you align our values, that need for diversity, for example, in the organization, and be able to influence them? You've got to be able to do that. You don't want to go in and argue and just tell them this is the right thing to do. You've got to be able to influence, to partner, show them the value going forward. So there's a level of education, there's a level of partnering within that, but then driving value. So you've got to make sure you've got all of that in there. I think you're going to have to prove you understand the business, whether you're a benefits manager, a payroll manager, an HR generalist. When you go and sit down, you're invited to a meeting, for example, you got to prove your value. You can't be what I call a tourist. A tourist is someone who comes out of a function, they're invited to a staff meeting, whatever the function is, you sit down and you really have nothing to add to it. You're just there kind of listening in, which is more like a job shadowing, something like that, which is great. But that's not the role. That's not what you want to be doing. You're going to, you want to be paying attention, understanding, come to the table with a perspective, ask thoughtful questions. That's going to bring them in for you to start that relationship, start adding value, start understanding where you can help to enable them and partner with them, if you will. So I think those are some of the hurdles to go through. They're not definitely not insurmountable. You just got to commit, and go with it.
Yeah, I think a lot of what you said is almost like everyday actions that you need to take to just be a great at your job and to be a resource to your company.
Yeah.
And so you talked about this a little bit earlier, but let's say someone's looking to get an HR, but they're not quite sure because some people watching this video are making that decision. And what are some signs that HR is right for you rather than going down another career path?
I kind of go back to there's a level of self-awareness, understanding who you are, what you really enjoy doing. Do you enjoy working with people or do you not? Do you enjoy working through problems, solving problems, or do you enjoy working with things? If you work with things, for example, you're probably going to more towards an engineer, as an example. They're going to work more with things. They're going to build, design, do those types of things. HR is very much people oriented. You need to be energized being with people. You need to be interested, if you're in college, I would say if you're interested in human and organizational psychology, sociology, and management principles, that's one step towards you might like HR. If you can vision and strategize, create a plan to achieve, if you're the person that when you're going to take a vacation, you can do that whole plan and everyone just enjoys that vacation and you get to the end, you've succeeded. That might give you a little insight that you might enjoy doing some of the things in HR. Um, you're not afraid of difficult conversations or situations, and you can have a level of emotional intelligence, meaning that you don't get heated, you don't get so upset, you're not going to attack people. You can think through it, but you're also not afraid to have those. You can be direct within that, and you prove yourself to be of value in those situations. Um, high level of integrity, a penchant for equity and fairness. I think those are huge within HR. You've got to be approachable. You've got to be able to influence people. If you have the ability to be tactful, if you find you're just a tactful person in whatever the situation is, that's huge. And of course, you've heard me say this probably throughout this interview, high business acumen. If you have a business mindset, so if you're in college, you have a business mindset, you enjoy those classes, maybe even do a little investing at that point in time, that's really going to be a huge help. And I would say, if you know how to align, if you go into a project and you know how to align that project to what you need to provide for the professor, for example, you can sit down once he's given you the assignment, he's given you that syllabus, you sit down, you look at it, and you know how you can get to the end with an A or a B or whatever you're shooting for within this. That gives you that capability at the very front end of being able to align with and affect how that project's going to go and your success, if you will.
And Steve, thank you so much for everything that you provided thus far. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave our students with in terms of advice of how to whether up level their career or break into HR?
I would say if you have an opportunity, like I said, the front end to network, talk to some people directly in those areas. If you have the opportunity to job shadow, just ask them, can I come and job shadow for a day with you? Sit in the meetings that you're in, just understand what you do on a day-to-day basis. I think that's a huge insight, a window into what that life would be, if you will. As far as breaking into HR today, the HR executive role, job rotations are big. What I mean by that, if you have the opportunity to step into a business operations role, a sales and marketing role, maybe it's a finance side, go for it. If you have the opportunity to be involved in an acquisition, so mergers and acquisitions, go for it. Do that. Those are huge anymore for HR. They are looking for people who are not only solid in HR, but more well-rounded from an overall business standpoint. You have the opportunity to run a P&L in a business operations job, or you understand the sales and marketing cycles and channels that go on, whatever that may be. That's becoming more and more valuable. So I'd say if you're looking to become an HR executive, look for those projects to be involved with. Be positive. That's another thing they look for in HR. Be positive at all levels, all the time. And that's not as easy as it sounds, if you will. But what they're looking for in HR is you're a person who identifies talent, develops the culture in the workforce, and you have to be a positive influence, bringing cohesiveness throughout the organization. And so I'm probably getting a little long-winded with this, but I think there's a number of things that you can do that I've gone over. That's going to set you up for success, set you up to be much more attractive when people are looking to interview you and hire you.
Steve, if students want to get in touch with you, can they connect with you on a platform like LinkedIn?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm out on LinkedIn. My contact information is out there, and I'm happy to help however I can.
Great to hear. Well, thank you for taking the time to do this interview, and thank you to everyone who's watching. And we'll go from here.
Sounds good. Thank you, Jay.